Family, karibuni sana to yet another beautiful episode of the Pan-African Bliss Show. This is the media of the 21st century, the Black Hot Fire Network radio station. My name is Joby. To everyone who's here for the first time on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, everyone on TikTok, karibuni sana. Kindly do follow the live creator, subscribe on whatever platform you're streaming live with us from, and kindly also download our application, which is very easy to find. If you've been looking or wondering how you can pin your comments right here on these amazing conversations we have, you can download the app and, of course, rush to the show page and stay connected with us. You can also actually create an account using your username, of course, from the app, join, log in, and, of course, use or come in using your username. And you can also, of course, purchase these amazing supplements we have right here. And we keep on talking about and preaching about health, which is your wealth. And according to today's conversation, as we look at literally matters affecting Africans across the globe, we shall be discussing the post-colonial hidden agreements to protect settlers at the expense of indigenous lands or the people, literally. So we shall be looking at our white people and why they benefit the most more than the black people in Africa. Coming from Lynn Gugi, she's been doing amazing again. I shared a video that was on Monday, the video talking about literally the global agendas. When we talk about Bill Gates and what literally has been happening, why people need to be cautioned. But this one shall be talking about lands. When you talk about the finance bill that we saw that left many innocent youths killed right in the 254, some of the actually bills that were supposed to be passed that we heavily rejected is actually this privatization of indigenous lands, because I'd say that is the term. Literally, they were looking for you to pay taxes for your own land. It is just so crazy. A land that you bought with your own money. It is insane. But this guy here, who I shall be sharing a video of him after this amazing, of course, letting you guys know about the health and why you need to get these amazing supplements. He talks about, explains literally even why poaching is very active in Africa, the main reasons for poaching in Africa, and we can see this has actually happened or is actively taking over in Tanzania, to be specific. Tanzania right now, you can see someone like Samia Suluhu has given the white people the right to come and poach. We're talking about the crocodiles, the elephants, all types of animals. And there's a white man who said clearly it was the president who gave them the right. But if you look at this, the effect it is coming with, the poaching or the hunting, what is actually happening is that it's chasing people away from their lands. And we're talking about the Tanganyika people, if I'm not really wrong, because once Samia Suluhu came into power, we saw immediately that was the Tanganyika people complaining, raising, of course, concerns about what is happening and why they need protection and they need Samia Suluhu to stop this. But karibuni sana, that is our conversation for the day. But again, ensure you have our application. Get yourself these amazing supplements. We have some amazing sports nutritions, vitamins, minerals, proteins, and blends, amino acids, beauty, hair, and skin essentials, some food and beverages, and also some amazing natural extracts. Talking about the multivitamin bear gummies, we also have the vitamin D3 for those who are not getting enough sunlight. You can get this amazing product. The green superfood, we have the complete multivitamin as well. And under our beauty, nails, skin essentials for your girlfriend, your mom, your sister, your needs, your in-law, get them some alpha energy, brain and focus formula, cognitive support. We also have some colon gentle cleanser. And under the beverages, the coffee lovers, this is very organic. We have the Manuka honey coffee. We have the mushroom coffee fusion. We have the hemp coffee blend and the Brazilian blend as well. And last but not least, we also have the amazing natural extracts, the platinum turmeric, moringa pure, and the lao maize mushroom, and also the honey goat weed. I don't want to go back to the music because the video is quite long. So we're just going to get started immediately as I break the points that I've gotten from here, as I explain the few things that I've understood from this video here, and how I as an African, what I learned from this and what other Africans need to learn when it comes to our indigenous lands and us, the indigenous people.
Thanks. We've had a lot of rain, so the ecosystems are doing well, and we are happy.
You're happy.
Yes.
You love when you see things blossom.
Yes, yes. And there's a lot less tension around those who depend on grass and grazing and water. So everyone is in a good place now.
Yeah. Last time we were here, we were with myself and Baria, and it's very beautiful to see the comments on that particular video and to see people awakening and also
great.
getting to understand our land. How does that make you feel when you witness this kind of awakening?
I think it's a wonderful thing, because we are educating people, people are learning, and the sort of eye-opening that's happening is something that our formal education system has so far completely failed to do. So people grow up and grow old, and people even of my age who have no idea what's going on right here in Kenya. And there are people who live in Nanyuki and know nothing about what goes on in the wider Laikipia. So I think these sort of conversations are really good for our people, especially if we want to change things for the better, if we want to improve things and have a better future for the coming generation. So it's wonderful just to hear people talking about, especially conservation stuff. I've been very frustrated because so many, majority of Kenyans think conservation is for tourism. It's for tourists, and it's Kenya Wildlife Service business. A farmer doesn't think his farming plays a role in conservation. A driver or a manufacturer doesn't think the role of his factory has anything to do with conservation. But it's about all of us. We all need air, we all need water, we all need food. So conservation is about all that, and it's great that we have forums like this are bringing every common person into that sphere and that conversation.
Yeah. And I must say, I am a firm believer of when the student is ready, the master appears. And I read somewhere you are not a fan of telling people to subscribe to your YouTube channel. You love when people find out what you're up to and they check you out. And I have to say, I've been following your YouTube channel quite a while now.
Thank
also
you.
your conversations at Maisha Kazini with Dr. Wandia and Joya. And those are just thought-provoking conversations you're having there.
Yes, there are things we have to think about. Again, my YouTube channel sort of started as a way of me expressing thoughts that I find difficult to write. That sometimes it's difficult to connect things in writing, but if you speak them out, it helps me as well to see the feedback from people. So that's been very helpful. That's why it's about so many different things, about politics, education, global issues, social issues, and nature itself. So it's a very satisfying sort of format, and social media is changing Africa more than anything, more than
Exactly, because we've seen just recently that is the mainstream media actually, the mainstream media is collapsing. We have the internet right now. We have literally the online radios, the online media is completely taking over, like us right here. Like people are really like no longer listening to mainstream media, because I feel like people have started to know that this has been feeding people lies. We're dealing with people who are paid to just, again, we're living in a world full of programming, and the mainstream media is part of programming us as Africans, and I'd say globally, not just as Africans, but globally. The news, what we feed in, is not what is real. Majority of the things reported, and a good example is even during the demonstrations, we saw so many people lost their lives, but the mainstream media was actually giving and feeding lies about this. They were saying 2 people died, lost their lives, 6 people. Well, we're talking about tens, hundreds of people, literally. So I feel like what he's saying, majority of the information, especially right now, people are tapping into, is because of the TikTok. Number one, let's say that TikTok has been one of the biggest platforms, which we've seen, of course, helping youths, the older generation, to know things they didn't know. So From there, I feel like it's really, really understood. The mainstream media literally is collapsing. It's losing the number. But shout out to Daniel. Thank you so much for tapping the screen. Karibu sana Jomo Squito, Nico Fiti sana Jambo. And I also see we have that is a TV producer. Karibu sana. Hope you're doing great as well. Karibuni sana to the Pan African Bliss Show. My name is Joby. To those who are here for the first time, and this is the Black Hot Fire Network radio station.
Schools and aid and all these
The
other
video I'm sharing, for those who maybe are wondering what I'm sharing a video coming from Lynn Gogi. I'm loving her videos very much because I feel like she's really, and it's I feel like she's gonna lose her channel. I'm not literally pushing any negativity on her, but I feel like Lynn Gogi, because of this information she's and bringing these intelligent people, it's gonna make her lose her channel literally, because you are threatening the global power, you are awakening the people, you have a platform, and you need to understand you have numbers. So I feel like Lynn Gogi might literally lose her channel because of majority of the information she's been literally, or what the people she's been bringing to pass information. So the video we're sharing here is from the a video explaining the post-colonial hidden agreements that settlers. Let me read that again. The post-colonial hidden agreements that protect the settlers at the expense of indigenous people. We're talking about white people benefiting the most, especially when it comes to our lands. And this I started by saying and giving an example like Tanzania. We saw Magufuli has been one of the late presidents from Africa who has tried the best he can to protect his people. When we had the COVID-19, he didn't lock down his country. He didn't push people to wear the masks. He didn't literally do majority of all these things. So what I'd say and what I've seen since Samia came into power, Samia Suluhu, we've seen the Tanganyika people, actually the Tanganyika people suffering and calling out for help because their indigenous lands are being taken away from them forcefully. So there's something I've also never understood when it comes to poaching. This is what he's going to be explaining. Why is poaching very active in Africa? And I didn't know this until actually he mentioned it. I also myself, and this is why I love actually sometimes these shows, because I'm also learning something about my people, about something I didn't know. I've never understood why poaching is really, really active in Africa. Why is the killing of elephants, animals so prioritized, especially by white people? But if you look deep, these again concerned or relating to our lands. We're just talking about the national parks right now, which are being heavily exploited. We can see gold smuggling. Literally, there is illegal mining happening in Savo National Park. I did share this. So where are the animals? That is the question, because this is a park. How come people are so comfortable to even go on a park where you know your lives are in danger, and you go actually exploit resources here? So this actually explains very well why poaching is also very active in Africa. But I'm going to let him talk. I don't want to speak much. I'm going to give my points as we continue. John Mosquito is saying, Joby, did you get the $2 I sent you? I'm going to ask Keith. Thank you so much, John Mosquito. I'm going to ask Keith. I'm going to chat to you and know what's up. Like, yeah. But thank you so much, John Mosquito. I appreciate it. I saw you said you're going to make it $3.
Social media and conversations are what's changing our society.
Yeah, and I must say this scares the politicians, of course, because we're in the era of learning and relearning.
So many people and so many things depend upon ignorance. Ignorance is such an important currency in global politics, in injustice, in corruption, in oppression. Oppression is fed. It's a plant. It's watered by ignorance. Many oppressed people don't even know they're oppressed. But when people wake up, people sort of realize who they are, the value of what they have, and suddenly you realize, yeah, we are in a bad place and we need to change something. Or even if we are in a good place, we can do something to make it better.
All right.
Yeah.
And I love that you've mentioned ignorance and awakening, because that's the feeling I got on our conversation with Mike Harris. And as I said, guys, you might want to watch that video so you can tune in to this conversation. But we are going to generalize it. We don't want to
Yeah.
personify
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But I got that same feeling, because some people are like, Lynn, why would you ask him to give the land back, right? And others were, please, he should give the land back. And also understanding this is a third generation settler. He has nowhere else to go. This is the place he has called home for a long time, right?
And
So
to explain or to expound what I feel like she's saying, this is why we even have like the white South African farmers who feel comfortable in South Africa. And they even have the audacity to threaten South Africans and declaring wars, because again, she said these are the third generations of the third generation of people who literally invaded our lands. So it makes sense actually why they feel entitled like that. It does make sense. And they shouldn't. Because like he said again, ignorance plays it's a very big currency. I love the way he said it. Ignorance is a very big currency that is taken or very much used, because our ignorance of not understanding history, our ignorance of not understanding why we don't need to be having slums, our ignorance of always prioritizing white people before us is what is actually making white people rulers. The ignorance, because let me tell you, I feel like white people are not ignorant. That's just one thing I've also learned. I feel like white people are not really ignorant. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but I feel like white people they're just brilliant. That's all I'm gonna say. Wickedly brilliant. Wickedly brilliant. They know how to calculate. They are very united. They question. Unlike Africans, we're so comfortable in the leaders we have. We're so comfortable again with the news we're being told. It goes back to programming, like I said, and this is because of ignorance.
hold that. Another thought is, we were just talking before we started this conversation about a movie that has been going round, Battle for Laikipia.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would it be a battle in the first place?
Yeah.
Why would you fight for what you know is rightfully
Yeah.
yours?
Yeah.
So I loved that our audience recommended you to come and walk us through this conversation of land. So number one, why is land such a sensitive topic? Number two, when we talk about settler colonialism, what are we talking about? And number three, why are we fighting for what is ours in the first place?
Yeah, those are
Daniel, for sharing the live. I appreciate it.
very central questions, and it's about ownership. If I speak about land is really important, and not just to me and you, but in Africa, because we are not immigrants.
Yep.
In Africa, we are indigenous to this place. So
Exactly.
if I ask you, Lynn, where do you come from? You can probably go and show me a particular spot.
Yes.
Exactly.
Or maybe you can, even if your grandfather had passed on years ago, you can even show me where he's buried. So land is an integral part of our identity. Even in Nyanza, Luos, we ask Ijakan, where do you come from? So you tell someone, I come from Kabondo, and which part of Kabondo? This particular place, you turn left there and you find that home there. So, for instance, if that land, that place in Kabondo where I come from, or where my grandfather and my late father are buried, was taken away from me, I have a crisis of identity. It's the ultimate form of violence, apart from the monetary value of the land. I'm not even talking about any value of farming or anything on it. It's that identity value. That's what makes land so important. The Mau Mau fighters who fought and bled and died those days, that's what they were fighting for.
The land.
It wasn't about money.
Exactly.
I don't think.
And exactly. This is why I'm gonna pause again. This week I've been saying, from everything I shared on Monday, I said I always have a problem, or I have a problem with people seeking reparations in terms of money or in form of money. We don't need money. What has been taken away from us is so indigenous, and we need to understand lands. If I had a land today, do you know how happy? Like for me, being 26, having a land, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Like that's a big blessing already, number one. Like a big blessing. I have a land. I have a compound to call my own. Somewhere I can plant. I can do literally everything for myself. I don't need to know GMO. I can literally do everything there. That is what we're talking about literally. Because I feel like having a land, number one, the fact it gives you the opportunity to produce your own food, you can also expound that to a business. So you can become actually a distributor of whatever you're planting. Could be onions, could be tomatoes, could be kales, could be spinach, cabbage, maize, whatever you're actually like on. Apart from that, talk about poultry. You become a farmer of chicken keeping or keeping chicken, whatever you want to call it. And this starts distributing eggs, right? You become the number one egg distributor. And that is wealth we're talking about there. Talk about the cows, milking. I've grown up with all this, literally. And I agree, everything is explaining. Like when you, as an African, when you're asked about your identity, number one, your home describes you. Where you come from describes you. But it is so sad to see today we have immigrants or migrants, I don't know, however you want to call them, called illegal actually in their own continent. We have Zambians, Zimbabweans, we have so many actually African people in different African countries. And leave alone a land, even a citizenship itself is so hard to get. But we're having Indians who are getting citizenship within a minute. Make it make sense. Why is it that me as an African person I have to suffer the most, while a white person actually has to get everything easily? We need to start questioning this. And the moment you start questioning, we're gonna understand our power again as African people. And you'll never allow yourself to be belittled ever. But I see Daniel, he says the main asset, exactly. He also says something to leave for our kids. Exactly. There's no longer even generational like wealth to leave. If you look at today, majority of Africans actually do not even have at today, youth to be specific, the men. Because I remember growing up again or understanding the culture of Africa. If you come from a wealthy, and I mean wealthy land-wise, if you come from a wealthy home, number one, when you grow up as a man, there's a certain age when you get, I think you're given a space by your father where you can create your own house. Kama siko wrong. The firstborns, I guess. I don't know about this, the firstborn, the second one, but I feel like all the men. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but that used to happen. And maybe some places still it happens, but it's not really that much the way it used to be like back then. We no longer have that generational wealth to leave behind for children because it's not there. Okay? The lands have become super expensive. The lands have become also another big part of scamming Africans themselves. Not the white people, Africans. Because I remember when my dad got a land in a place called Njiru. That was in 2016 when I lost my mom. So I remember after burying my mom, I found my dad had shifted. Like, it's crazy. Because I didn't know. My dad got a land and then we moved. So when I came back, he was already in another place. So I remember one time, because me I was day schooling, never went to boarding. When we came back home, it was really chaotic. Because we even had the GSUs, the KDFs literally poured there to protect the people. Rumors had it, the current president, no, the current president, yes, paid some Gaza goons to go and vandalize, literally to go and threaten people in their houses to leave. Our house was really destroyed. And I mean destroyed. People's houses were destroyed. You can imagine people who go under construction, like you're still doing your your construction, you just put up maybe the windows, your maybe your house is full of glasses, like you wanted maybe a glass type of house or whatever. But what I mean, people lost a lot of money. People lost money because number one, you're going a loss of a construction that you've not even yet finished. It has already been destroyed. Aya, when they went back to ask about the title deed, because it was so unclear who is the owner of this land. If you claim the land belongs to so and so, so these title deeds, are they real or fake? Only to come figure, the woman who was selling the land, because I remember it was a woman, the woman who was selling the land actually like was giving, I think fake titles or 2 title deeds to different people. But originally, Ruto had bought that land, but it was still being sold to people. It was still being sold to people. So it's crazy. As much as we don't even have anything to live, when you try get it, even in today's generation, it's so hard because the scam has become very, very huge. It's super insane. But I also see it says generational wealth plus community. Exactly, which is very, very important. I also see it says we're viewing our reality through Mzungu lenses. I agree with you, and which is very dangerous for us as Africans. This is why we've gotten to this point where we are today, because we're not living in the space of questioning. We're no longer questioning things, and we need to. When we see things moving this way, we need to ask, why is it that these other people benefited first or benefited the most more than me, myself, who I'm born. By birth, I'm a citizen. By birth, I'm indigenous and I'm entitled to this land. So why is it that actually other people get it easy? When it comes to me, it's a problem. So he's going to explain something as well. He speaks about and I've said this before too. He's speaking about where we have black people, skin wise, they're just black in the skin, but the actions they live by is so white. But I'm gonna let him explain further. I just love this topic. It's crazy. But I also see Daniel says let me read that. Somalians are the middle players destroying North Kenya. I agree with you, because and this comes from the presidents too. Literally, these presidents. I also see you talking about Kagame, Museveni, Ruto bloodlines. I agree. He also says we mixed with the Habib children too much. Men, which is another problem.
It was about, my God, I'm nothing. And if you imagine back 1950s, land is still an important part of my identity, even today, in that we are living in Nairobi. Imagine the 1950s.
Exactly.
Some guy in the middle of Muranga somewhere, and he suddenly uprooted and told, get out of here. It's like you are dead but alive. So that's the key basis of the importance of land. Settler colonialism, it is a very powerful force in not just Kenya, but a lot of the world. But most people don't understand it correctly. Settler colonialism is not an event, or it's not something people did. It's a structure that people built. And this is very detailed. Those who are inclined to read more about it can look up works of a sociologist called Patrick Wolf. He was an Australian. He passed on a few years ago. But he talked about it creates a structure where his paper is called Settler Colonialism and Elimination of the Native. In some lands like Tasmania, the settlers actually killed the natives and eliminated them physically. Gone. In other places, they created structures, and these other places includes Kenya. We created structures where the settlers in colonial days, we had a sort of apartheid system. There were permits to be in Nairobi. You needed to have a permit to be in Nairobi, especially if you are Kikuyu, Embu, or Meru. And even people from Nyanza had permits to be in Nairobi, which had to show I'm working for so-and-so in Muthaiga or whatever, or for government. So they created an apartheid system. So they had the schools, they went to the hotels, they went to the places they lived, the hospitals they went to. I mean, even it still exists now. The Nairobi hospital was the whites hospital, and across the road was Kenyatta.
Yeah, that's true. Because Nairobi hospital is very expensive. Not majority. I'd say majority of Kenyans cannot afford Nairobi hospital. Majority. And I'm saying majority, I'd say 90% of majority. That's the majority. I'm going to give it at that. Because if you look at just today, the taxes we're talking about, we can see the housing levy being passed is making people's salary be deducted. The KRA iko kila mahali, kipokonya. So how am I going to afford Mzungu's hospital? I'm going to go to the poor service hospital, shitty hospital, and that is Kenyatta, which is just across the
where the blacks went.
It's crazy.
So these apartheid structures are still there. It was the same hospital.
Okay.
Yeah. And even now, it is still, one is for the elite and one is for the common people.
Yes.
So we need to keep this during our conversation that when we talk about whiteness, we have many black whites in Kenya.
True.
That's what he's saying.
That's so when we talk about whiteness, it's not about the physical color or race. So it's the structure. So settler colonialism was created like that, and one of the things that created it, nobility in England, was based on land. Land, even in England today, is owned by the nobles. They have a feudal system operating within what they pretend to be a democracy today.
Of course.
So there are nobles who own a small minority who own a lot of land, and the nobility is based on land. The Duke of wherever, this land belongs to the Duke or the Lord or Lord so and so, and this kind of thing. And they transferred that to Kenya, and they created a nobility here with these crown grants of land. So if you look at the settlers in Kenya, they were the landed, those with the large grants. Then there were some who were civil servants, like the colonial officers. Those were DCs. They came here. Some were police, some were military. They worked here. When they retired, they went back. But the landed, the ones who owned land, the nobles, remained. And that's why prior to Kenya's independence, the famous Lancaster House talks, those who went by the Lancaster House talks, the colonialists chose the liberators. That's where it went wrong, because they picked Lynn, so and so, Lancaster House. What were they discussing in Lancaster House? You will get land of Kajiado, and now you can decide who you will give in Kajiado. You are like now a duke. Now you can decide to create small dukes by giving them land and that kind of thing. And it sort of fed on from that. But that created.
Well, I'd say Kajiado because I live in Kajiado. At least there's some people who still actually have, because there's plenty of land here. That's one thing I've learned about Kajiado. Like, this place is so huge, like super huge. And then there's still lands actually being sold. And if you try to trace, I understand what he's saying, of course, but just to defend a little bit of Kajiado, I feel like people actually still have the ability to extend the generational wealth we're talking about. And that is in terms of land, literally. Because we're talking about the Maasai community who own actually majority of the lands here. Who else? We have the Kikuyus, of course. But I feel like there's still that ability here in Kajiado. I'm not saying in Africa or Kenya, okay? And that does not include me because my father doesn't own a land here. Doesn't.
A structure which we still suffer in now, where so much of the land in this country is owned by elites. It's owned by the whites, both the black and the white ones.
Yes.
Both the whites and the black whites. So much of the land is owned by, because it's still this status thing. It's still this status thing. Remember, Remember, now if you combine it with our Black Africans' identity, attachment to land, now big land is both identity and power,
Yes.
and greatness.
Exactly.
And it's a very powerful political and even monetary currency now. But if you look at certain areas of our country, and where land injustices occurred, one being the tea estates in Kericho. The Talai people were ejected from there, forcibly exiled to Gwasi. Many of them died. Some of them made their way back and now are still squatters by the roadside. But that's never been sorted out. And that, if you get in those tea estates, this is not ours. That's why even when BBC exposed scandals of sexual harassment and mistreatment of workers, nothing was done.
Exactly.
They even had cameras.
Don't own the land. Like, those women they were infected with HIV. We're just sharing literally the majority of the reasons why HIV and AIDS is on the rise in Africa. But Kenya, to be specific, we saw the woman explaining, because I don't know what happened to the husband, but she's looking for a breadwinner to feed her kids. And she had to sleep with someone who has HIV and AIDS to make ends meet. Same situation happened in Kericho, the Kericho scandal. And yes, BBC exposed all this. Nothing happened. And this goes back to something I said at the beginning of the show. The mainstream media is something else to be questioned. Because the reason why I love what I do personally is the fact that I have the ability to go back to stories, explain what really happened apart from what I told last time. Okay? I love the fact I can keep traces of something I've reported and see a positive or negative outcome out of it. I'm trying to seek solution or see if it has been solved. But if you look at most of the mainstream media, they're going to bring you the news, yes. You're going to see what is affecting people. What is the solution? Are you following back? Are you going to go back, follow up after maybe a few months if the same situation has been handled or it is maintaining the same way? You as a reporter, you as news, you are here to help people get justice. That is what I believe. The mainstream media should not just be exposing and not helping people get justice. That is one thing I always have a problem with. Because we see so many stories being covered, like the GBV stories. That is one good example. I've seen the GBV stories, gender-based violence, many reports, many scandals. But what is being done? Today we're talking about actually cases rising. So it's crazy, man. It is insane. That's all I'm gonna say. It is insane. So we need to start questioning a lot of things.
As showing this is the guy doing it. Those guys are still in office to this day.
Exactly.
Because that is sort of England.
And we saw those women, they had to bend over for a manager who is infected with HIV and AIDS. Until to date, that manager is still a manager. That manager is still a manager. Sleeping with people's women, people's wives, and their husbands not even getting job opportunities unless they bribe or use their women to be able to get into the tea farms in your own indigenous land. It's crazy. It is crazy.
In Kenya.
Kenya. Yeah. Yeah, that's what's happening. Come to Laikipia. We've heard of various violations of local rights, like by British army soldiers. There was I forget her name. There's this young lady who got killed in Nanyuki. None of these cases ever go anywhere.
Exactly.
Because there is an agreement somewhere. I'm not sure where it's domiciled, but there's an agreement that certain parts of Kenya aren't ours. And we need to understand that as we live in Kenya today, there's some still agreements that happened during independence that we don't know about and we are not privy to. And the land regimes, those those of your audience who may have had the experience of buying or selling land, there's that survey, stamp duty, land board, all that, stamp duty pay and all these kind of things. And then you get a title deed issued in your name, LR number, this and this, with your ID number. The crown lands or crown grants of land, like what you are discussing with Mike Harris, they were just demarcated, handwritten, not given a document given to him. He's different because he's still of that family who are given. But if you come to Laikipia and many other parts of the country, the people who own the land today are not the original grantees, may not even be of that family. So these lands have changed hands. But they changed hands not in the way we do things yet. They changed hands, money is paid, and give you that piece of paper.
Not a title deed.
No, not going through that lands of your new title deed issues. No, they don't have title deeds like what we have. They have that land grant document. You pay me the money, and I give you the document with whoever's name was. It was written someone's name in 1925. So I just hand over that to you. And when the 2013, the first post new first election.
I feel like, just to also again expound what he's also saying, trying to understand what he's saying, I feel like he's saying, or it makes sense why we also have the demolition or some houses being demolished out of nowhere. There has been deals that were signed that we have no clue about. I think that really actually explains it. And then going back to what he said, where we have black people who have the white people's character, of course, greediness, power, greediness and power. That is what it has led us to, or led them to. And these are our own leaders. Majority of them, because of the greediness and power, they feel like just because I'm a president, I can take anything away from you anytime I want because I'm in power. Because I'm a president, I can just wake up today and say, hey, this building is no longer yours, it's mine. You guys remember the story of the students demonstrating in 2015 about Ruto snatching or grabbing a certain land, a school actually, a school. He took a school and made it a whole hotel. A school.
Under the new constitution. Then that's when I found out that. That's when I found this out, because then Laikipia County government called me. I was then director of Laikipia Wildlife Forum. Called me asking for a list of my members and which lands they own. And I didn't know who. And I thought, but surely you people have the records of the owners. You have the land registry there. I said, no, these are not registered lands under Kenya law. And that, you remember, there was a furor then when the then Laikipia County government wanted to impose land rates, some nominal amount, I think 10 shillings per acre or something. In fact, the land rate at the time was 3 shillings per acre. They had wanted to raise it, but then the landowners caused a huge furor. And we were wondering, many of these are lands owned by billionaires. What is this 3 shillings? But that's nothing. Then you realize, no, it's because it would expose the fact that these lands are not documented under our land laws, as we know the land laws to be. That's what would have been exposed. And shortly after that, that election, the government of then Governor Joshua Irungu, who is back in office now, they all summoned to a meeting in Oljogi, and obviously they were read the Riot Act, like this is how things are here. Yeah, this is how things are here, and that just went away. And there are many other things that happen in this country like that, but we are not privy to, and so we end up in this situation where we think there are many things are coincidences, but we don't join the dots. There is a reason why the British Army is based in Nanyuki. And in 2017, there was violent resource conflict, when there was a drought and there was a lot of invasion in these lands. Boris Johnson, who was then the foreign minister.
A lot of invasion. I just said about 2016. That's the time my dad also lost his land. So he's talking about 2017. There was a lot of land, and it's still happening actually even today.
UK.
You can see how Ruto actually is just waking up, taking over lands. Like
he flew to Kenya. He landed in Lewa.
This man looks evil.
Not without any Kenyan government official. He landed in Lewa in a British Army helicopter, surrounded by armed Royal Marines. And he said the British government will protect its interests.
In Kenya.
Yes. Kenya. Yes. Nanyuki is in the middle of Kenya. That was not at Jomo Kenyatta Airport or Nairobi. It wasn't even in Nanyuki, it was in Lewa. And that's obviously sanctioned from, he was a senior minister in the British government. That's sanctioned from very high up. So there's a lot of, this structure is the problem. This structure is the problem. What was done in the past, the killings, the torture, and all that Mau Mau war, that was terrible. All those things were terrible things, and we need restitution for those things.
Exactly.
But what still ails us to this day is that the structure which was created through that colonialism and war and everything is very much intact to this day. Even if you look at our main cash crops like tea, coffee, they're still traded through colonially structured tea auction, coffee auction. I don't know this. It's not simple. The agricultural exports, including flowers, we create cartel. Mordecai cannot just grow flowers and export flowers.
No.
He goes through this cartel called Kenya Flower Council, and it's taken through to a flower auction controlled by other.
And it's Africa at large. Like, I feel like this also explains something I was talking about a few weeks ago or a few months ago about when we were talking about the vanilla essence, and why it is so hard for many farmers to even like export or make any profit from this. Is because we have the cartels. And again, having a friend who's very active in farming, shout out to Wallace, what I learned during the times like we used to go to the airport, man, you need to have deep connections. Let me tell you, you need to have deep connections with the people in the airport. You need to know someone, because the question is, who knows you? Yeah, so you brought your shit. Who knows you? That's the question. You want to make money through me? Do I know you? Of course not. So you take your shit back home. That is the position majority of the African farmers actually have been put in. And this is why we have this, we have a crazy competition, which again is not adding any value. It's crazy competition from the top, because it's explaining literally. It's from the top. And this is why the common mwananchi, a local farmer, cannot be able to make it. This is why we have China Square taking over our market. And this is not a threat to the country, because the cartels are really there.
The cartel in Europe.
Exactly.
And that kind of thing. So that in a way is what Kenya has failed to escape. And me personally, in my life, this came to me through the conservation sector. The conservation sector is a white space, not just in Kenya, but in Africa. It's a white space still in 2024. And if you look at the history of formation of national parks, there was a rush to form many national parks in so many African countries around the late 50s, 1960, when independent was ilikuwa inanukia. Yeah. And after Harold Macmillan gave his speech, the Winds of Change speech, and in South Africa. So conservation has remained like that. The people who started national parks were mostly soldiers who had just retired from the Second World War, British soldiers. And that World War created, these are people with PTSD. You know, war is terrible. Britain did not want these people back. That's why they settled them in Kenya, Zimbabwe, and all these other parts of their colonies.
Wow.
Because these people would be a problem. So many of them came here. So many of them came to Africa. Those who came to Africa became hunters. They would lead hunting safaris because they've been shooting people for the last 6 years.
Yes.
They need something to shoot. So if you can't shoot humans,
They need something to shoot.
occasionally
That's their nature. I feel like that is what he's trying to say. Goddamn, what did I do? That is their nature, literally. Like, that is just their nature.
and it remained a white space. That's why in Kenya, we've always
Let me see. I don't know where I pressed. Let me see. Okay, here we are. Okay.
people back. That's why they settled them in Kenya, Zimbabwe, and all these other parts of their colonies.
Wow.
Because these people would be a problem. So many of them came here. So many of them came to Africa. Those who came to Africa became hunters. They would lead hunting safaris because they've been shooting people for the last 6 years.
Yes.
They need something to shoot. So if you can't shoot humans, occasionally they shoot humans, but there's wildlife, so you shoot the wildlife. You shoot the wildlife dealing with their trauma. It's the only thing they knew. So then suddenly these people who are killers of wildlife suddenly became conservationists.
Oh.
Somehow
Environment.
they decided, there's not enough. We need to create areas to protect this wildlife. But mainly it was to create white zones because you can't go shooting wildlife when Mordecai is there herding goats.
Yes.
So conservation is a way to get indigenous people out of any given piece of land. And that's when these demobilized soldiers who knew zero about wildlife ecology suddenly became conservation heroes and authorities, creating parks, writing policies, creating wildlife departments within government. That's why our wildlife, our KWS is sort of military. It's from that primitive origin. That's why today we have the Director General of Kenya Wildlife Service, Dr. Erastus Kanga, PhD in wetlands ecology, is wearing a uniform and dressed like a soldier. It's because the origin
Programming again
of our wildlife authorities lies in primitive military thinking, not in traditional relationships with our environment and wildlife. So this is what caused that myth you hear that hunting is good for conservation. You don't need any degree. You cannot conserve anything by killing it. No.
Yes.
Hunting is good for removal of black people from land. That is the importance of hunting.
Like I said, it explains very well why right now we have the Tsavo National Park in Kenya, which we shared a few months ago, the details about it, why they're now exploiting the national parks. Like he said also, they set up so many national parks, not only to just come figure out, because this is information we just learned recently, I learned recently, these places have tons of wealth, gold, or the minerals that are there. And they knew. And they have kept these national parks knowing there's a day, a time, an era, a year where they're going to come. Man, and this one I'm telling you, white people are really smart. Again, I'm going to say that. White people are really wickedly brilliant, smart. Don't forget the wicked. But they're smart. They do everything by calculating, understanding what is the goal, what is the agenda. Africans, you need to learn so much. Like, we need to learn so much from these people. That's all I'm gonna say. But yes, this explains why we have the Tsavo National Park being exploited. This explains why we have the white people right now poaching in Tanzania, which of course again is leading to the displacement of the indigenous people of Tanganyika being chased out of their own land. Explains everything very well. And I think something I've also learned understanding every day I'm doing the presentation, I'm like, these people articled everything out back then. It was everything has been written. It's just that it comes as a surprise to us because we didn't know or we don't know history. We have no clear information about history. The the deals that were signed during the so-called independency. Because how do you say I'm independent yet you still own bunch of lands in my country? Why do you still seek need to control? That is the question. Why do you still wanna declare power so much, yet you claiming I'm independent? Why won't you let me be independent for real? And that is by you, number one, not owning anything in my own country. If not rightfully, then no. But I'm going to share bits of it as we come closer to the end of the show. I'm going to share the rest of the link of the video on WhatsApp for those who'd love to continue, because these are really, really interesting topic. If you're also seeking to come buy a land in Africa, learn something. We keep on talking about this, especially for us here on Black Hot Fire Network. We are big preachers of this. Before you come invest in Africa, like I've said, you're going to be hassled and you need to do research. So for you to avoid to be hassled, this video is one of the things I'm going to share to understand why the generational wealth is no longer actually expandable. That's the term I can use. Why we no longer have, why my dad can't give me a land right now, you know? Why my dad actually was unable to own a land in Jiru. Why we need to understand again the leaders we're dealing with, which the kind of I'd say the different coats they wear every day. And like I said yesterday, just because you wear different coats every day doesn't make you a different person. You're still a clown. Once a clown, forever a clown. Like, you're gonna remain that. Nothing is ever gonna change, no matter which costume you wear. Try wear different. Your character is full of it's just you being a clown, so you can't change your character. And this goes literally deep with our presidents. I feel like that's what I'm trying to say, because if you look at not Ruto but Jomo Kenyatta, and going back to the article I was reading again months ago about how Jomo Kenyatta signed the independence deal, a glass of wine and a house full of books. That is what he was given, and explains very well why this same thing is still continuing, because we're dealing with leaders again who come from nothing, poverty. They come from poverty, and because they are being given these opportunities that their fathers, their grandmothers never had, because they're from fighting, seeking independence, it excites them all. And now because they're even in power, it becomes even worse. It's a black person full of white person's character. That is what we can see completely with the leaders we have today. Explains very well why our lands are being snatched away every single day. And it's more crazy because I remember there's a video Morara shared on TikTok. There is a certain project the government had started back then, and this project is not complete till to date. Till to date. It was launched, funds were pocketed, but this housing, it was a housing project, has never been completed. I can't remember specifically the location, but I remember Morara sharing this. So it's just, it explains a lot. But I'm going to share 3 minutes of this as I wind up. And of course, say thank you to everyone who has joined us. Shout out to you, Juba Jaba, Karibu Sana. Hi to you too. Hope you're having an easy day today. And I also see you saying if you are independent, they become dependent. Exactly. But we are not independent. We are the ones dependent, who are dependent. Because talk about the loans, talk about the food which you just spoke about, talk about not the vaccine, but the medications we take, bunch of things. We don't own or control anything. We are actually owned. I'd say that as Africans, we're not really free. We're still very owned by these white people. And this is why they can actually, they declare a lot of war on us when we're demanding for our rights. A good example, again, I'll go back to the demonstration. We are having a very peaceful demonstration, but because we are demanding for dependency, for independency, I mean independency, where we need to have free, where we have the ability to make choices or question things that are being brought to us. Because I believe what Kenyans did with the finance bill, we were questioning, why is it that you're passing this harsh taxes or this harsh bill while it doesn't favor me like this? I don't have a job, I don't have this. So what do you mean you're going to do this and this and this? And which included the land. This one I'm loving this, because the finance bill actually included the land as well, which most of the people had not seen how bad this is going to become for us. So we're still very owned by white people. That's all I'm going to say. Very, very controlled, much controlled. But let me share this few minutes, 3 minutes as I wind up.
When you declare this a hunting area, Lynn cannot stay there.
Exactly.
You cannot have children walking there.
That is Tanganyika right now. Tanzanians are suffering right now.
You have, for obvious safety reasons. Yeah, for obvious safety reasons. And then you have a white space. Then there will be people who will pay a lot of money to come and enjoy that white space. And then the business starts and it grows like that. So that's how we get into it. And it remained a white space. That's why in Kenya, we've always assumed that when we talk about conservation, and those of us in conservation, it hits us in the face every day. However qualified a Black conservationist is in Kenya, your opinion is always treated as subordinate to any white person at all. That's as simple as it is. And even when Kenya Wildlife Service was formed, we had, that was 1990, I think. We had many qualified Black ecologists, but Moi picked Richard Leach. He did not have the qualifications to do it. But he got in with the military mindset, got whatever government instruments to form a paramilitary force and all that. And it's true, poaching was a problem at the time. And he fought a war against poachers. And I think he won that war against poachers. But now we are stuck in that mood. It's still the same KWS, formed by someone with high school level education to fight a war against poachers. Now there are real problems. Invasive species, you can't shoot them. You can't shoot Lantana Camara plants. You have to deal with that. Climate change, you can't shoot it. Drought, you can't shoot it. Floods, you can't shoot it. And these are the real problems. Zoonosis, sort of these animal diseases.
Yes.
You can't shoot them. So how are we going to address these problems? When we need to deal with issues of habitat, connectivity, policy issues, these things, you can't deal with them using guns. But we are left with guns. So we have...
Exactly. And that's why I'm speaking about control. But we're coming to the end of today's conversation. It's been an amazing show. I personally loved and learned something, especially about the poaching, because I feel like, again, the universe answers you in different ways when you're seeking answers. Because that's something I think I've been asking myself. Back then, what's the main reason of poaching? Why is there prioritization of killing animals, elephants, and all that? What is the need? But now, of course, the answers I feel like for me have been very well answered. Again, understanding history, because everything leads us back to history, like I said, and understanding everything. Everything that we are dealing with today is a cause of history. So we have to go back to history. And through what he's explaining is that historically we can see there's some unknown deals that were actually signed. Countries and the colonial masters, there were deals that were signed that we have no idea about. And these deals are the main reason or the consequences of what, or the results of what we see today. Lack of generational wealth, because he spoke about money and power. And if you look at money and power, number one, land is one of the biggest, he said, biggest currency. That's one of the biggest currency. But they are slowly taking away that from us. So I feel like it's up to us as Africans. Like he said, we settled everywhere. We could settle everywhere, anywhere we wanted. And I feel like that should be something very easy to do. You know, when you talk about passports, when you talk about visas, personally, I'm a high believer. We shouldn't even be having IDs. Okay, I am African. This is my name, and that's the end of it. These identification cards everywhere I go, I feel like it's so unnecessary for Africans to be specific. The people coming from outside the African continent, and that is the other race. These other races, literally. They should be the ones who have the identifications. We need to see who you are, where you're going, again, how long are you going to stay, what's your business in this country, who are you going to stay with? Because me, I feel like I've learned so much when I'm traveling out of the country, like going to Tanzania. The questions you asked on the border are really crazy. You don't have to leave the number of the person you're going to stay with. You have to leave the number. You have to give like it's like you're being interrogated. It's like you're a thief or something. The interrogation is super real. So I feel like for us as Africans, we need to go back to history, understand a few things before we start asking for reparations. I'm heavy on that again. I don't care what. It's okay to have your own opinion, but as for me, I've said Africans, before we ask for reparations, we need to understand what really happened. It's more than money, like I've said. The lands we have, the lands that were taken away from us, it's more than money. And the lives, count the lives too. So it's more than money. We need to understand why we are asking for reparations. Because if you look at most of the people today, even the survivors of these hard times, the world wars, the fighting for independence in every African country, I feel like most of these survivors are not even asking for reparations because they really need it. It's because they're broke. They're really broke. Like, because Africans have been kept in a position of, again, hand-to-mouth situation, right? No job opportunities. Everything has become so hard for us to tap into, which was very easy for us to tap into. Looking at my history as an African person, everything was there, but everything is no longer there nowadays. So people are not asking for reparations because they really need it. That is just as me as Joby have understood that. It's because they're broke. It's because they're broke. They just need the money. But it's more than money. But I'm wrapping it up right there with today's conversation. Thank you so much to everyone who's been with me on Rumble. Shout out to everyone who's on BitChute. Shout out to also everyone live with me on YouTube. I see Jibajaba over here who says, I know an Uzbek, am I pronouncing that correctly? An Uzbek, when visiting, you can't take large sums of cash. You stay in a special hotel and have to keep a handler when you go out. Okay. And I also see some countries don't play with their foreigners. Exactly. Exactly. So why is it that we, for Africans, we have to be the soft ones? Why do we have to be so gullible? Why do we, as much as we're full of love naturally and all that, bro, don't let that love be taken for granted. Understand who you are, understand the power you have, understand your history, which plays a very big role for you to know who you are. But much love. Have yourselves a beautiful day. But as I wind up, again, a reminder kindly for those who are for the first time, that is on Rumble and Beetroot, ensure you subscribe, follow us, and ensure you also have our application. Like, if you love the conversation, also ensure you hit that $sign. Help us continue paying these amazing bills, man, and running this platform, because, like it says, it's expensive to maintain our network, especially. It's really expensive. But have yourselves a good day. And see you guys later on the Tubonge Show and the Africa Today Show. For those who shall be catching this on a replay, I hope you guys you enjoy and leave your comments behind. But get yourself this amazing supplement. A reminder, your health is your wealth. You need it. We have it. Come get it. Get the vitamins. Get the beauty, hair, nail, skin essentials. Get yourself the coffee, which is very organic, and the natural extracts. Much love. See you guys. Bye. I'll be wrapping it up with the jam I started with. That is Diana Codes featuring Siwa Cider. Peace.
Yeah. Trauma yako pereka na uko Mr. Kidem ana vitu